All right, joining us here on In the Circle on D1 Softball, making her third straight year appearance on the show, fresh off a 41-win season, leading FAU to the American Conference Championship and their first NCAA Tournament berth since 2016. In fact, she's only won. Her FAU Owls are one of two teams that won a championship in South Florida in the whole market. I speak of Jordan Clark joining us here at In the Circle at D1 Softball. How you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. I'm actually back home in Arkansas, so the scenery looks a little bit different, but I'm excited to be on here.
All right, so I'm wearing the Florida Panthers hat because I'm a Panthers fan. They won the Stanley Cup final. Boca's a half hour away from
Yep.
Sunrise, where the Panthers play. Of course, they beat the Oilers in the Stanley Cup final. As I mentioned, your team and the Florida Panthers, the only two teams in South Florida to bring home a championship. That's pretty good company.
Yeah, we did. I noticed your hat right away when we started, and I remember we were at a big watch party for the Panthers last year. So it was just really cool. Like when you live in a city and like you get to be a part of championships, and then it gets to come to life in your own program is pretty special.
When you reflect on last year, 41 wins, you win the American Conference regular season title. That came down to the wire at the end between
Yeah.
you and Tulsa. Had to sweep to win that regular season title, make the NCAA tournament. What comes to your mind when you reflect on last year?
Man, it was special because so it's so rare to be in first place the whole season and to keep it. And I think that my most proud moment is knowing that how our kids handled that pressure. And I think a lot of times like you get in first place and then you start to play tight and you play like you're trying to hold on to something. And I thought our girls just took it and ran with it. And like we kind of took on this persona of like we're going to win. Like it's not a question. And so going into that Tulsa weekend, we had to win 3 games to know, like, to like solidify that we knew we were going to win. And so there was never a doubt. Like we got down one of the games and the girls looked at me and they're like, don't worry, we're good. And so it was just pretty cool just to see that like they just, they took it and ran with it. And our program hasn't done that in a really long time. And so for them to be able to do it was special.
What crossed your mind? You're hosting Tulsa. You know what's at stake. Like, are you scoreboard watching? Are you just, I mean, you're focused on your own deal, but take me through the emotions there because, one slip up and, it's a whole
Yeah.
different story there. And now we're not even talking about some games even prior to that, like the UAB series. You had a
Yeah.
crazy series, a lot of things to overcome.
Yeah, I mean, I was way more nervous than I think the girls were. And like we don't have a video board. And so like I had no way, like Charlotte was playing North Texas at the same time. And so we knew it was going to come down to the Charlotte North Texas series, and then it was also going to come down to what we did against Tulsa. Tulsa was a really good team, had good pitching staff. And so a part of me is like, okay, I knew we were winning like late in the sixth, like top of the seventh. And I'm like, okay, what did North Texas and Charlotte do? And I'll never forget on that Sunday, we clinched. So we knew we were like, okay, we at least are going to share a piece of the pie. And Charlotte and North Texas hadn't even started yet. And we were
That's
like, so
right.
it's like you didn't know if you were going to hold it by yourself and whatnot. And we kept thinking, we were like, okay, surely North Texas is going to get Charlotte at least once, right? Like they're going to get them once. And Charlotte just came out and they were lights out after, the series that we had against them. We beat them in that series and then they took off after that series. And so I felt way more pressure because it was like you could taste it, right? Like when you're so close to something, it's like, oh my gosh, like what if we don't do this, right? Like what if we don't? And we had a lot riding on it. Like we wanted to play in postseason. We knew that like we were fighting for that at-large bid. And so there was just a lot on the line. You're at home, it's senior weekend, you have so many seniors. And luckily it played out how it was supposed to.
Yeah. To win the regular season title, then you
Yeah.
get to selection night. You win, you get to the semis of the American Conference in Wichita, fly back. You're
Yeah.
waiting for that show. Then,
Yeah.
then the Gainesville Regional pops up and your name
Yep.
pops up there. What? Give me through the emotions
Okay.
there.
First of all, my poor kids, like after the game at Wichita, all I kept telling myself is I was like, we just have to make this a good game. Like we have to give ourselves a
Yeah.
chance. Okay, it was not a good game. Like we don't have to relive it, but it was not good. And so after the game, like my speech to the team was like, I love you guys. Like whatever happens, happens. But like you need a plan that we're not gonna get in. And they all just looked at me like, oh no, we're getting in. And I'm like, no, 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 like this is gonna be really close. We don't know. Like, do I think we deserve it? Yes. I said, but we needed to play that game a little bit closer. And I was like, so you need to like you just need to process that this could be your last game that you ever play. And they didn't cry. They didn't like, and I'm like, do they not care? And they thought I was crazy. Like they really did. They were like, she's just trying to like make us feel better. Like we're getting in. And so selection show, they all thought I knew because like I was trying to stay like super stoic, like whatever happens, happens. We're not going to get upset. Like it is what it is. And so even my assistants are like, do you know? Do you know? Do you know? And I'm like, no, I don't freaking know. Like, I don't know. And so it was like, I knew that like if we were getting in, it was going to be Gainesville or Tallahassee. Like I just knew. And so thank goodness it was Gainesville because Tallahassee was at the very end. And so when it went off, it was like, oh, like it was just such a cool moment. And so Cam Jackson obviously played at Duke, and she's played in super regionals. Callie Kildale coming from Arkansas, and so listening to their perspective afterwards was so surreal because they were like, "That was the most nervous I've ever been." And I'm like, "Well, was it because you were a senior?" And they were like, "No, at our previous schools, we knew we were going to be in." And I'm like, "You're right. Like when I was at an Arkansas, like I knew we were going to be in." And so it's just so special when you don't kind of know, and like everything's kind of riding on your name to be called. And that's just what made it so special to be a mid-major and to be an at-large bid. Like it just doesn't happen often. And I don't know, I was so appreciative, like, because I know how much goes into that process. And it was just special.
Well, and I give you credit for watching out your players' best interest because that is an emotional deal. You don't know. So
Yeah.
you've got to protect them in case you don't get in. The easy part is if you get in, that's easy. But what happens if you don't get in? Even regardless how you feel about it, you got to make sure your
Yeah.
players don't feel so, if it doesn't go well, they don't shouldn't
Right.
ride that. So I thought I give you credit for that. I think that
Yeah.
makes a
And I
ton of
think they thought
sense.
that I was lying to them. I
Right.
really do. Like, I think everyone just thought, like, oh, she's making this sound way worse. And I'm like, guys, no, like, you don't understand. Like, we are a mid-major and we are fighting for our life, and everything matters. Every game, every score, everything matters. And so it was such a special group, and I knew in my heart, like I know regionals didn't go the way that we necessarily wanted it to. We lost 2 games by 1 run. But I knew we deserved to be there. We just haven't been there in so long that it was almost like we didn't know how to handle it once we got there. Like it
Sure.
was like the excitement of getting there, and then it was like we played in close games all year, but it was like we couldn't figure out how to close it. It was just a different feeling, but gosh, it was just so cool. Like it was so cool to have that moment and to take FAU as an at-large bid. Like it's something that's honestly top 5 on my coaching memories.
In just 2 years. I mean, you just did it in your
Yeah.
second year, and you defied the odds because you're right. A lot of times, in the past, the committees left teams like that out,
Yeah.
not fairly or not. It just is. So
Yeah.
history wasn't on your side, but you defied the odds on that, which I think
It
even makes you more
wasn't.
proud.
It wasn't. And I just think like it was a moment like when our name got called, it was like you have this vision when you take a job. And I think we all take a job and we think of what it can be. And I'm very realistic when I'm looking at jobs, when I'm looking at recruits, when I'm looking at like every decision, whether it's with assistants, whatnot. And it has to make sense. And so, like I always said, FAU made sense to nobody else but to me. And so, all the things I was preaching to recruits, to the athletic department, to my boss, like to everything, it was that moment of like, wow, this all came true. Like, like I think people in recruiting process preach, like, yeah, you're going to help us win a championship. You're going to help us change the program. But does that actually happen? And so to see that it actually did, it was like, wow, like all these like tears, all these like everything that goes into a job, it came to life, which was pretty priceless.
I was gonna say, did you take a moment to take it all in, either during the whole thing or right afterwards? Did you take a moment to take it all in?
No, come
Joking.
on now. Like my personality, like I'm a roller coaster and I am always to the next. Like I think that in athletics, like they say, like, oh, go enjoy it. But as soon as it happens, transfer portal opens. You got to stay in contact with all your current commits. You've got to keep your team going. You've got to figure out who on your team is staying and leaving. Like there's just so much that goes into it. And so, and then when you are successful comes a new form of pressure, right? And, the competitive side in you is like, okay, that was awesome, but now we're on to the next. And so, I think deep down, like I'm really proud. Like I am. I'm so proud. I've approached this fall a little bit different with our girls. And I think that's the way I've gotten to enjoy it a little bit is how I've approached some things. But I'm an in the moment kind of girl. So like when my name got, or not my name, but when our name got called, it was like, okay, this was the moment. Like this is why you said yes to FAU is right here. And getting to do it with Brian White in the room and Mary and in Russell, Sport AD, like, and our whole team, it was just like, those are people that have been there from the beginning with me.
Sure.
And it was pretty special.
You got a ring? Did you get a ring for the conference title?
We did.
Oh, very
And
good.
we are having our ring ceremony in February, which is a little late, but we wanted to bring back all of our girls. And so we're going to do alumni weekend, our first
Smart.
weekend of games. So then that way they can see games of the new team. We can have the ring ceremony. We can have alumni weekend. We're just going to do one big weekend with it. So
Oh, smart. I like that.
the rings are cute. They're very girly, but they're cute.
All right, I need a photo when that's all ready to go.
You'll get a photo. You'll get a
Uh,
photo, but they're very, very girly.
your words, not mine. What I will, Fallon, let me ask you. You meant you got half the new faces on your roster, half of
Yep.
them. 12 returners, 12 new faces, 8 freshmen, 4
Yeah.
transfers. Uh,
Yep.
how do you get all those different personalities there to bond over this fall?
Yeah, it's definitely been a challenge, a good challenge. The one thing about this group is we are really competitive. And I will say, like, this is probably, and this is no disrespect to our previous two teams, it is probably the most athletic group we've had, 1 through 24. We have 24 girls, most athletic group. But with that comes we had to replace a lot, right? Like we lost practically our whole offense. And so we're trying to fill in the holes and we're trying to teach and develop. And, I know at times I get known as, transfer you, and I don't think that's true. But I say that because we're developing and we're taking a lot of time this fall to really get to know our girls, really figure out what works, what system do we want, what do we want our team identity to be, how are we going to handle that our team is going to look different than last year's team. And so we're taking things really slow this fall, and I usually am very much like, let's go, let's go, let's go. This fall is like, hey, we're going to take one day and we're going to do this skill, we're going to do this concept, we are going to work on team bonding this day. And we're just trying to make sure that there are no cracks in the foundation, because if we can keep this group intact, because we have 8 freshmen, because we have like all of our transfers this year, we had 4. They all have at least 2 years with us. And so, like, this is a group that we are going to have for at least 2 years. And so we want to do it the right way. And so we've just taken a little bit of a different approach this fall.
Plus, you got a new face on your coaching staff with obviously Taylor Smart
Yeah.
moving on to becoming the UAB head coach. You bring in Shelby Petek, who's very familiar to people that follow
Yep.
softball in the state of Florida. Take me through that process once Taylor moves on, gets a head
Yeah.
coaching opportunity, which is exciting for her. But now you got to move quick and make a decision on your staff that you'll find that person to fit your staff. So tell me about why Shelby is that person.
Yeah, Shelby's been amazing. I am so excited for just the softball world to see her. I think that when you are a coach in the JUCO world, like you get hidden a little bit. And so we played against Eastern Florida last fall. And I was so impressed with like how she was able to treat that program with the resources that she had. And so we had always seen each other out recruiting and kind of stayed in contact a little bit. And, when I knew Taylor was up for the job at UAB, your wheels start spinning and you start to think, okay, what do I want? The biggest thing that I wanted was loyalty. I wanted somebody that, was going to love the program and not look at it as like, hey, how can this help me? And I can be done pretty quick. And so um, for me, it was a no-brainer because in the JUCO world for her, she's had to wear so many different hats. She has to drag the field. She has to coach the defense. She has to coach the offense. She has to help the pitchers. Like she had to do so much. And so I like how we've built our team and our program is outworking everyone and developing and being a good human. And Shelby fits all that. And so it's just been really refreshing that she has come in right away and it's like we've known each other forever. She has just been awesome. And so obviously there's an adjustment, right? Like Taylor was with us for 2 years, did an awesome job with our defense. And it's big shoes to fill. But I think that's the cool thing about Shelby is she's not trying to be Taylor, right? She is Shelby. And I think that our girls are finally seeing that and they're finally going like, okay, wow, like this is different, but it's also really good. And I think that change isn't always bad. Change is a good thing sometimes. And so our girls have just really taken to Shelby and Shelby's taken to our staff. I could talk all day about her because I just think she's been amazing for us. And I'm really excited that she chose us.
Will the roles be similar within the staff? Is it pretty much the similar staff what you've been doing the previous 2 years?
Yeah, so Nicole she's still the OG. She's been with us from the start doing our pitching. We actually hired Kate DeLeon, who played for us last year, which has been interesting because I have never been a big believer to hire your players who just graduate. Like I'm very cautious about that because she played with some of our girls on the team. And so I fought it for a long time. And I actually was watching her coach travel ball. And all summer long, every game I would go to, I was like, you're amazing. Like you're meant to do this. And she was actually looking at different jobs in the corporate world. And I finally went to her and I was like, hey, you're going to think I'm crazy. I want you to work with us. And her eyes lit up. And it was just such a cool moment because there are some people that you come in contact with that are supposed to be coaches. Kate is supposed to be a coach and she is so creative. She is so patient. She is so thoughtful. And she has been amazing. So Kate does our catching and she helps out with hitting. She helps out with defense. Like she kind of just does it all, which is awesome. But she is the primary catching go to. And then Shelby's doing our defense. I'm doing our hitters. So it's very, very similar to last year. And it's just a team effort. And I think it's cool because we can all kind of dive in and talk about like, what needs to be done. And we laugh at Nicole because Nicole gets sad if she's in the bullpen all day. So we tell her that she has a little FOMO and that she's missing out. So we try to schedule bullpens so that Nicole can come to more practice. She's the fungo queen. So if you ever need somebody to hit a good fungo to the outfield, Nicole hits like grown woman fly balls
Oh,
to the
really?
sky. So yeah, so it's just been good. Like that's kind of, it's very similar to last year. Elizabeth Hightower is still with us. She is she's our GA, but she's doing a lot of director of ops stuff. And she is also in some player development. Like she's just behind the scenes crunching numbers and just doing some really cool stuff.
How's your fungo game?
Mine
Yeah,
or
yeah, yeah.
Elizabeth?
Yeah. How much do you play?
I'm a lefty. So, I personally I get really competitive with my fungo.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I get in there and, with the infield's on the clock, like we do like something where it's like you get so many seconds to field it, like I'm trying to beat them. So they know that when I get the fungo in my hand, like I'm not going to make you feel good about yourself.
I have learned that game is the most gets coaches really
Yeah.
revved up. Like you want to see
Yeah.
Coach Bear really get intense, get her in a
Yep.
fungo game with Tim Walton and Tony Baldwin. Like when they're
Yep.
doing US, I've heard interesting stories how intense it could get.
Oh yeah, like it's like a pride thing. It's like who hits the best fungo? Can you hit it where like the target is every time? So definitely like fungo, but we are very picky about our fungo. So like Nicole's a righty, I'm a lefty, Shelby's a lefty, Kate's a righty. So we really try to make sure that like we're switching it up and it's not just the same person hitting fungo every single time so that they can get different spin, different feel, different side of the plate, those kind of things.
I'm pitching it to the NFCA convention to like throw in a fungo tournament for all coaches.
That would be fun.
I would
Like
fly in. I would call it. Don't even
that
have
would
to. I
be
mean,
fun.
There you go. I'm just saying.
You could do it for prizes. Think about it. Like in the exhibit hall or something, like you have to hit it certain or you have to do something and you win a free registration to next year's convention or you get to pick out a gift or like people would love it.
I just want to see you and Deifel go at it one on one there. Who would win?
Ooh. I don't know. Courtney's like the silent killer.
I
Like
know.
she won't talk a lot of, smack. But
And
she's really
you would
I
try to
might
get
talk a
her.
little.
You would
Yeah,
try to get her.
I
You would
talk
bait her.
smack.
You would try to bait her, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I do all the time. Like even when I see her now, like I try to push some buttons and but she's so competitive. And that was the one thing when I worked for Courtney was I always was like, she's so nice. She's so nice. And then like you actually get her in a game situation or something that like matters and you're like, you're a different human.
Yeah. That's why she's a national champion catcher. Yeah, so that's where that comes out
uh,
at some point
she's the
there.
real deal. She's the real deal. She knows it too. I have so much respect for her.
You mentioned obviously with Kate on your staff. Obviously, that's going to be one of your questions is the catching positions among the that in
Yep.
the outfield really are the
Yeah.
biggest questions. How tell us about what you could foresee from the outfield and the catching position because obviously that's an open situation. And then
Yeah.
as somebody who runs the offense, do you have to remind yourself to maybe be patient with them in this process?
Yeah, yeah. So with the catching situation, so right now we have four catchers. We have two freshmen, we have one transfer, one returner. And so we have no one on roster that has any innings at FAU. So it's going to look a little bit different. But we really want to kind of try to run a two catcher system is what's worked for us. And it worked for us last year, even with Kate. And so we're gonna kind of try to run off of that. And I think it's really cool. So like we're sponsored by Rawlings, and Rawlings just put up a video on social media, and they'd come to one of our practices, and I was laughing because they recorded one of our catchers, and I was like, oh wow, she looks good. And when you're in the moment, like you don't give as much credit. Like you're like, we got to be better, we need more. And so seeing that moment of like her catching and compared to some other schools and their catchers and what they were doing, I was like, wow, like we look really good. And so it's a proud of moment for Kate and what she's been able to do with our catchers. As far as the outfield, it's a big question mark. It's a big question mark. We lost every outfielder that started last year. However, Kylie Hammonds, who was kind of our fourth man last year in the outfield, she is going to play a big role this year. She is most likely going to start in center field. She is, going to be in the heart of our order. She has done an amazing job. So we know that's one staple that we have to start. Now, she can always get beat out. She can always, she is competing, but like I think she's going to get the first crack at it. She knows it. Our team knows it. She's just done an awesome job. As far as the corner spots, we've got, Bella Ferran is a freshman. We've got Sierra Gibson, a transfer from Liberty, and we've got Kylie Shelton, a transfer from Colgate. And then we've got some freshmen in there as well. We've got Abby Oda, who is a senior returner. And so we have some people that are going to really compete. So it's a position where I hate that it works out this way, but it's going to be, you might get a couple games. If it's not working, we're going to try something different until somebody gets on a roll and takes it and just keeps it.
Your offenses are known for being really good as far as doubles, among the nation's best in hitting
Yeah.
doubles in the gap, extra base hits, attack offensively. Do you feel that that is still the case here, or do you think the identity is a little different with this personnel?
Yeah, we're gonna play fast. We're gonna play aggressive. We're gonna turn singles into doubles. I feel really good about kind of some of the offensive pieces that we have. We have some slappers that can hit doubles. We have some slappers that can hit it down the line, turn it into a double. We've got, some people that might be at the top of the order that any other team can bat in the 3-4 spot. So I feel really good about it. But with that is just going to come game experience and figuring out our park plays big in the gaps. And so it's easy to hit doubles in our park. It's a little harder to hit the long ball in our park because of just the way the wind blows off the beach and whatnot. And so, yeah, we better be hitting doubles. Like that is the goal. We talk about it a lot. Like we are a doubles team. You need to expect like when a ball comes off the bat, unless it is a ground ball straight to somebody, you are standing on second. So that's kind of how we teach it. So hopefully, fingers crossed. So if you look at our stats halfway through and we're not hitting doubles, then we're probably not scoring a lot of runs.
And yes, folks, if you're wondering, she did say off the beach, correct? You just did say the
Yeah.
beach. How
Yep, you're
far
right.
how far is the beach from the campus?
From campus, it's 1.8 miles. So
That's
you can kind of smell it. Yep, you can smell it. The breeze, the way our breeze blows is it blows across. It blows across like towards right field because of the way it comes off the water. Our kids, they finish practice at 12. They're at the beach by 1. We do homework on the beach. We take class from the beach. So yeah, it's a big part of what we do.
rough. Yeah, that's a tough sell.
Rough. It's
Tough
a
sell.
rough life. I'm telling you. Even like this summer, like when I was talking with my husband, I'm like, do we like it here? Do we like it here? And we're like, where else can you live that is
Well, I was
like
gonna
this?
say, like, you're bringing in a recruit for a visit. I mean, that's an easy trip, right? Like, oh, hey, here's the beach, by the way, right here. We're about a mile away.
Yeah, I'm not going to give away all my recruiting secrets to the world, but let's just say that the recruits like it's important for them and they love it. And so we try to give them that experience. And the beach isn't for everyone. And I tell people, like, you're in South Florida. If you don't like the beach, you've got, professional hockey, professional basketball, professional football, professional baseball. Like, there is so much to do where we're at, which I think is cool. I've worked in some cool places. I've worked in college towns, I've worked in cities. This is like the best of both worlds, which is really
Sure.
cool. It's safe, it's clean. I think when a family comes on a visit, they get that feel of like, okay, my kid is going to be taken care of here.
You're very kind to call my Miami Dolphins professional football.
They
That's
are,
very
they
so.
are. They're just, they're trying to figure it out this year, but they're
Yeah,
professional.
sure. Uh,
Get tickets for cheap this year. So,
Something like that. Very good.
yep,
You mentioned doubles, part of your offense. One of them was Kylie Chanel, who's finished
yep,
11th in the country in doubles. And she's three of the infielders that returned, with Chanel at short. You
yeah,
got Mora at third, and then Orlin at second. Part of an infield that helped your defense be a top
yeah,
10 defense all year last year. I think top five, top six, even by the end of the year
yeah,
there. How
yeah.
important is it to have those three back in the infield to be the leaders there, offensively and defensively?
Well, I don't have as many gray hairs because we at least have our infield intact, which made figuring out the catching and the outfield position a little bit easier because you know that you have some consistency on the infield. I think that also helps us make some decisions on the mound, knowing that we have some key pieces to the puzzle already intact. Kylie is amazing. And I think Kylie's story is what makes her amazing that not a lot of people know is, I tell it and I think she just laughs at me, but she was an uncommitted senior and, she was tagging all these Power 5 programs and, you know, no one was really taking the bait on her. And so for us, it was she took a chance on us and we just told her like, hey, like you don't pass the eye test. She's 5'2", 5'3". She's not going to have the highest exit velo that some other shortstops in the country have, but she's gritty and she knows she's good. So when it comes to her hitting doubles, she always says, as I should. And I'm like, okay, go ahead then. And so she knows she's going to get it done. She knows she's going to hit a double. She knows that she wants the bat in her hand. And I think that's who we are as an identity, as our team is we're going to play a little bit of cocky, a little bit of confident, and we're going to know that like we can compete with the best of the best. And so Kylie has that and she brings that out of the rest of our lineup. And I think that hitting doubles, there's nothing more exciting. Like home runs are fun, don't get me wrong. But if you watch our team and you see Kylie Chanel get to second base and she slaps the ground and throws the dirt and like the dugout just goes crazy, like there's nothing like it. And so we like doubles. We like Kylie. We're so glad Kylie's still here. In a world of transferring and just the chaos, like you just don't know after someone has an amazing freshman year. And so Kylie's a big part of what we do.
No doubt. That's a big part of it, and of course, more in Orlando. And then first base, certainly another spot too that you got to fill in that infield quarter. But
Yeah.
you've got experience pitching wise
Yep.
back, and I want to start with Ainsley Lambert, who probably is the most unsung MVP.
Yeah.
9-2 last year, 2.41 ERA, 8 saves, tied for fifth in the country in saves. Was your reliever. You would bring her in, but she's got a rubber arm. I mean, I remember there were games where she had to go like a starter,
Yeah.
basically 6, 7 innings.
Yeah.
There was like a marathon game, I think, in conference where it lasted overnight. Like she's like
ECU. ECU.
that
She
was the
pitched
one.
on.
Speak to her.
Yeah.
Speak to her. Speak to her. Will
Yeah.
her role still be the same?
Yeah.
as one as the with their experience and just her value to your team, which I think is, like I
Uh,
said, very underrated.
well, first of all, Ainsley is my first commit at FAU,
Really?
and
Wow.
she was my first commit. We got her from Oregon State, and she came on a visit 2 days after I got the job, and she's forever going to hold a special place in my heart because she took a chance on me. And, she didn't know anything about FAU. She didn't know anything about me, and she took a chance. And so I say that because I am not ready for the day that we have to walk Ainsley out on senior day because she's meant so much to this program. And she is just a kid that loves life, and she is so thankful for everything that she gets. And so that plays into why she's successful on the field. And when she pitches, our team is at ease because they know that Ainsley is going to give us a chance. And so she is still going to be a closer for us. I think she closed like 32 or 34 games last year. It was insane. And she is somebody that can pitch for 1 inning. She can pitch for 5, 6 innings. Like she could be a starter on most schools. But for us, there's something to be said for when we're struggling and we need something different, when we're up or when we need a save, like whatever it is, Ainsley can do it. And so she's not going to throw the ball hard, like she tops out 57, 58, and she's going to spin it. And I think that's the cool thing is like, we have not tried to make Ainsley into somebody that she's not. And so I think in our world, we're like, oh, you got to pitch 60, 65. Like, no, like Ainsley is different than everyone we have. And everybody knows what's coming when she pitches, and the ball dances and she makes people look silly. And um, she's going to play a big part of this. And so the goal is to make sure she has help and to make sure she doesn't feel like she has to do it all on her own. And so we want to try to have two people in that closer role. So we're still trying to figure that piece out. But Ainsley's role will be very similar.
How did you spot her from the standpoint of making that decision to say, hey, she should be our closer and reliever, and then getting her to buy into it? Well, how did that process come about?
Oof, it was not easy. Like her first year, she wanted to start so bad. And I just felt like she put so much pressure on herself when she was starting. I felt like, and her ball moves so much. So umpires figuring out and establishing their zone, we just felt like people weren't swinging at things that, they were swinging at when she came into the game. Because if you have to prepare for Ainsley, right, it's a little bit different if you know she's going to start. But like when you're preparing for 2 to 3 other starters, you can know what she's throwing, but it still is going to look so different. So after Ainsley's first year, we just took some data, we took some things and just showed her, this is who you were as a starter. This is who you were as a closer. Like, do you trust me? And she just kind of looked at me. I'm like, do you trust me? Like, can you trust me? Do you know that I have your best interest at my heart? And like, I want you to be successful. And so once she finally trusted, then she became a different pitcher. And so she finally bought into it. And then last year, being an all conference selection, I think she finally was drinking the Kool-Aid of wanting to be a closer.
Why not? I mean, there's a big role with that, and it's significant and keeps your versatility as a big option there to help it and win. And she's a part of the experienced pitchers that comes back alongside Gabby. Sacco's back, a 12-game winner. Kind of went under the radar
Yep.
somehow. And then you got Jayden Martinez back. You do lose Trinity, but how do you feel about the rest of your staff?
I feel really good. I mean, we have 6 pitchers, which to some people will be like, oh my gosh, that's a lot. But I think that you're gonna see all 6 at some point during the season. And, I don't care if somebody starts it, comes in the middle, and then we have a closer, or if somebody takes us to the finish line and goes 7. But, I think you've got Jayden, Gabby, and Autumn who have the ability to start. You've got Kelsey, EG, and Ainsley who have the ability to close and to help out in midweek games. And so I feel really good about it. Like, do we just have a staff that's going to strike everybody out and shut them down? No, but we like our defense and we trust our defense to feed the defense. So that's important for us.
I remember you came on the first time a couple of years ago. And we talked about how your background. You were a teacher. You now is
Yeah.
really where the destination. In fact, there's a feature article on you on D1 softball. I encourage people to where you kind of go into that as well.
Yeah.
And as I understand, I think you spoke at the convention recently
I
about
did.
that
I
background
did.
teaching. How
Yep.
much of
Yep.
it? And I remember you said that teaching in a lot of ways is similar to coaching in that you're from a teaching them fundamental stuff, but also as a teacher, you're trying to get through that kid to get the most out of them in the classroom. Same
Yeah.
applies here on the softball field. Is that right? Is that how much of that is you've
It's
leaned
such a
on?
It's such a big part. And I will say, like, my story is unique because I went to college and I was a teacher outside of college. And so that's like what I went to school for. So I taught for 3 years. Then I got into college coaching. And so I am who I am because I was in the classroom first. And I think that you have to learn a plan A, plan B, and plan C. And teachers have to do that on the fly. And so it's helped me get to know our players. It's helped me understand like when they're really struggling or when they don't agree with something that we're trying to teach them because the why. And so yeah, like that's been a big part of who we are. And when we hire a staff and we talk to people, it's like, hey, this is who we're going to be. This is how we're going to handle situations. We're going to get to know our kids. We're going to figure out like what are their strengths, what are their weaknesses, what are their learning styles, and kind of go off of that. And so that's been super important. And I think it's what's made us successful. It's different. It's a lot because the kids laugh at me because I'll whip out like stuff from the classroom and like I'm like, can you hear me? Clap twice. And they're like, okay. We're not in sixth grade and we're not like in your classroom, but we do some fun stuff.
How have you handled, like I said, you're speaking at the NFCA convention. I know you do other speaking engagements now,
Yeah.
and getting that attention with the success you've had. You're getting attention within the FAU campus.
Yeah.
I remember talking to Coach Ball Malone after they won the regional. She said one of the big changes was she couldn't go to the grocery store without somebody stopping her because they recognized her and asking her, "Hey, how's the pitching looking?" Right?
Yeah.
How,
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
are you handling that? From that standpoint, where now people are going to probably recognize you if you go to a grocery store in Boca, or people are reaching out to you to do speaking engagements
Yeah.
and things like that.
It's cool. Like I tell people, and I said this year at convention, like, this is going on 10 years in college softball, but 10 years ago, I sat there at my first convention and I was like, wow, I hope someday that I can do something good enough that people want to hear me speak or they want to be a part of what we're doing. And so because our team was successful, because they were able to do it, it's giving me opportunities. And without our team being successful, it would have never opened up doors for me. And so, with that, like it's grown the FAU softball program, right? Like with season tickets, with, donors, with the NIL space, our people know the softball team. And I think that part's really cool. And, our team is first in community service. They're first in the Owl Cup, which is like GPA, going to different events, and also winning the first American championship. So because our girls have bought in to us as a staff, it's helped. But with that comes pressure, right? Like I'll go to a basketball event and I'm standing next to a really important donor that I've never met. And I'm like, hey, I'm Jordan. And they're like, we know who you are. You're the softball coach. Y'all won last year. Congrats. And I'm like, yep, that's us. And I'll be at we just hired a new football coach and he's seems like an awesome human, but I went to introduce myself and he's like, oh yeah, like we're gonna sit down and we're gonna talk because you won a championship in your second year. That's the goal. And I'm like, yep, okay. And so it's cool, but it's also a new form of pressure. And with, pressure comes privilege. And, I embrace that. And that's kind of why I do this is it was good, but now how do we make it great? And how do we try to repeat?
It's interesting. The roles have reversed because when you got there, the person you leaned on was Dusty May,
I know.
and now you're in that Dusty May role of people going to you for the advice.
I know. Like it's crazy. Like we're redoing like our big Oxley building and we are doing like, some decor, like decorations, wall, carpet, flooring, like all the things. And, they even ask me, hey Jordan, what looks good? What do you like? And I laugh because everybody's like, of course they're asking the softball coach. And I'm like, guys, like it's not like that. But it's been really cool. It's been really cool to see this thing grow. Like I'm so proud of it. Like I really am. And I think that, in our sport and in sports in general, like you can jump ship really fast, right? You did good, on to the next. I truly, truly believe in building something. And I want to see how far we can take FAU and what we can do to this program. And because the girls have been successful, because they've bought into the vision, our staff has bought into the vision, it is allowing us to keep moving this thing forward. And so forever grateful for Brian giving me the opportunity, forever grateful for our kids. I remember the first practice at FAU and they looked at me like, what is this girl doing? And so yeah, and now we laugh that like the things they fought us on in the beginning are the standards and the expectations, and we don't even have to talk about it.
And giving back to the game. I mean, sure,
Yeah.
Tim Wall, who just got inducted into the
Yep.
NFCA Hall of Fame, you know very well.
Yeah.
On and on. There's so many coaches that give back, especially in this state, and
Yep.
you're kind of part of that now. And this growth
Yeah.
of the state here, from a high school standpoint, from a travel standpoint, everything here, part of this rich state.
Yeah, I mean, being in Florida, there's so many high schools, travel ball organizations, and we've just met amazing people along the way. And I think we do a really good job in our state to try to keep the good softball in the state. And so, I've looked up to Tim and I've looked up to Lonnie and Cindy, and like those are people that have done it right for years. And so, taking some little things that they're doing and how do we continue to build it? I think eventually Miami will probably try to get softball, right? And we hope that we have a good enough blueprint in South Florida that that transition for them is easy to start that program. It's good for our sport. And so I try, like I'm a little all over the place at times. And so whether it's with my text messages being at 263 unanswered right now, or my emails maybe being at 2000, those are not my strengths. But I really do try to give back as much as I can. Like, I don't know the word no. I need to learn it a little bit more, but I do believe that like someone has given me something in the past. And so how do I now give somebody what they once gave me? So
But how much of that? Because I was always told. I mean, I'm from South Florida, but people always told me
yeah,
that market is untapped for
yeah,
softball. It's been maybe underutilized. You've
yeah.
now been there a few years. Do you agree with that? If you've noticed that being down there?
Yeah, there's just some raw talent. Like there's some kids that have just grown up with, brothers that play baseball, cousins that play baseball, or just watching at a facility. And so, I do think there is talent down there. And I think that the talent is spread across the state. We have high schools and the high school coaches that do a really good job. And so, the thing is that this type of recruit that we are now, there's no hidden gems anymore, right? And I think that in South Florida, like you used to have this recruit that maybe nobody knew about. And so I think of there's one of the best shortstops in the state. She, instead of playing for a travel ball organization in the state, she now plays for a school or a team in Texas. She just committed to Texas. And so, like, some of the really good recruits are leaving the state, which ideally we would love for them to stay. But, the type of recruit that we're competing for now is looking at Florida, looking at Florida State, they're looking at UCF. So we're in that same market for that same recruit. So we have to figure out how do we compete with them. And that's been something that, like, the more success we have, we're competing for the same type of athletes.
Well, one thing I've noticed when I've had coaches on this podcast talking about their schedules, and you're
Yeah.
on their schedule, they bring you up
Yeah.
right away. They're like, "Yeah, we got
Yeah.
to play FAU," oh, and they don't sound thrilled about it. I don't know. But now your schedule's out. As by the time this comes out, the schedule would have been out
Mhm.
already. That opening weekend with
Woo,
Clemson, you
woo.
got Ole Miss.
Yeah.
Is that just a continuation of a regional there you've scheduled there the first weekend there too?
Hey, the Owls want to do it the hard way. That's what we always say. It's like, hey, let's give people something to talk about. And so, some people that come to our tournaments might be mad. They're like, why did you make it that hard? And it's like, it's one of those things that actually, being a mid major and trying to fight for, an at large bid at the end of the season, like it matters, right? It matters who you play. It matters like what your body of work looks like. And we play in South Florida where it's 75 and sunny right now. And, we know that if we host in February, we're going to play. And so I think people are attracted to that. They know that we're going to put good teams in the tournament. And so, yeah, that opening weekend, our first game is against Ole Miss. Our second game's Kansas. Third game's Clemson. We've got Missouri State coming. We've got Georgia State coming. We've got Wisconsin coming. So we've got some really good teams coming down that way.
You got Minnesota week two,
Minnesota
Villanova.
second weekend.
Villanova, yeah, second weekend. Villanova's in the second weekend. They're a regional final team. They're winning the Big
Well, and
East.
that's what I talk about to a lot of people is I'm like, okay, I'm going to say Villanova. What do you think? And a lot of people are like, oh, I haven't heard a ton about them. And I'm like, they beat Arkansas in the regional. They win their conference. Like it's a good matchup. And so week two, NC State, Minnesota, Purdue, Louisville, Villanova, Dartmouth, like it's gonna be good. Good 2 weeks of softball.
Well, I'm even looking further ahead. I mean, a team like Marist, people may not be asleep on. Joe Asanio's done a great job there
Yeah.
at Marist. They made the tournament 2 years ago. They're going to be
Yep.
ready. Of course, you got UCF coming to your place this year for a
Yeah.
midweek as well. You were aware you were losing a lot of personnel when you made this schedule, right?
Yep. 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 My assistants are like, all right, here we go. I said, buckle up. You want to be the best, you got to beat the best. And so it's one of those things too with our girls, like it's hard, but we have to get over maybe some of what the names are and maybe what conference they're in and just realize that like, I look at Clemson. Clemson lost a lot. Ole Miss lost a lot. All these teams are going through the same thing we're going through as a rebuilding phase in a way and trying to figure out their identities. And I think that's the beauty of non-conference tournaments at the beginning of the year is we are all trying to figure out the same thing. And so, I'll be curious what we look like. And the goal is that it makes us ready for the American and for conference. That's the goal.
With the success you've had already there, when you're calling people about coming to your place, are they hanging up more frequently? Are they listening more? What's the phone calls like now with these programs? Are they more because scared to play? I mean, what's it been like since you've been winning
Yeah,
there?
I almost get overwhelmed in the scheduling process. I'll be really honest. Like it's overwhelming because we have so many people interested in playing in our tournaments. That it's, like I said, I struggle saying no. I know I do. And so it's one of those things that I trying to figure out who to put into the tournaments and who to say yes to, who to say no to is really, really hard. And so people are not hanging up. People, in fact, like want to play down here. I think it's a good matchup. And so we just try to give people the best experience that we can with hosting and trying to do it the right way, I think is important.
Sure.
And I spend so much time on this schedule that it's almost like sickening how much time I spend on it. And I might drop a few tears along the way because I want to give everybody a good experience. Like that's who I am is like I care. I do. I care. Parts of me care what people think and parts of me don't. But when it comes to like doing business, like I don't want somebody to have all the early games 3 days in a row. I don't want you to have all the late games 3 days in a row. Like I want to try to make sure the matchups are pretty fair. You have certain like you're the home team versus the visitors team equal number of times. Like I really do try to put effort into hosting.
No, that makes sense. That's the little secret people don't realize about hosting a tournament is you wanted them to have a good experience so they can come back. That's how you attract the marquee teams. Otherwise,
Yeah.
if it's not a good experience, you're going to have a hard time drawing them to come back. So that's
Yeah.
you just gave us a little bit of a behind the scenes. That's what everybody has to go through. I mean, there's
Yeah.
the positive is you're located in a spot where you can host a lot of tournaments,
Right.
but with that comes that pressure you're talking about.
It's been really cool. So we had someone who transferred to us that had played in the tournament, like one of our non-conference tournaments with a different team, and hearing their perspective, like, that was our favorite tournament every year. And I'm like, oh, that makes me happy. Like to hear somebody outside of the program and that how schools got really excited to come visit us.
American Conference, you're going to be the target in a lot of ways, just
Yeah.
based on being the defending champions in a lot of ways. Is that
I
something
was hoping
you
people forget about us. I was hoping people just like,
trust
hey,
me? I've
you're
talked to
going to be
other
at the
people.
bottom.
Yeah, no, you've come up and other coaches I've talked to. They complimentary. That's the good
Okay.
news. Like,
Yeah.
oh, she's knocking it out of the park. Quotes like
Oh,
that about you. But you're circled now. That you've become the team that people are going to
right.
circle when they play. Is that something you bring up to your players? Is that something you downplay? Is that something you embrace? How do you handle? Because I know every coach does it.
Yeah.
Some like it, some kind of downplay it. Some say bring it on. Where do you fall under that?
Yeah, so our we have team themes. And so the easiest way to describe it without like saying too much about our team is our team theme this year is called Dare to Race and it's geared around NASCAR and racing. And we talk about on the track and we talk about do you want to be the car that's in the front or do you want to be the car that's in the back? Do you want to be the car that's in the middle? And every spot that you're in comes with a different form of pressure. So it doesn't matter if you're ranked at the top, in the middle, or at the bottom. Like every school is going to feel something. We just have to decide what do we want to feel, and when we do feel it, what do we do with it? And so that's kind of how we talk about it a little bit. Is like we don't say, "Hey, we've got to win conference." We say, "Hey, we'd like to be the last team in the American playing." So whether that's in regionals, whether that's in the conference tournament, whatever that looks like. But we try to just have a grasp and try to keep it reasonable. But yeah, we gear it around that team theme and figuring out where do you want to be at on the track and how fast do you want to go.
NASCAR. Wow.
Yeah, we took our team to a NASCAR race,
Really? Which one?
Homestead in Miami.
Oh, that's right. You're nearby there. I should have thought of that.
We are obsessed now. Like we watched, there's this documentary on Netflix about NASCAR. And our girls got to dress up like all the cool NASCAR outfits. You know how the
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
TikTok
yeah.
social media world is. And we got to get them down with like the pit crew and we're doing some fun stuff with it. And so that was a first for me. I've never been a NASCAR fan, but there's so much more that goes into NASCAR than people think. Like I growing up just thought, oh my gosh, this is so boring. They're just going around the track. But there's strategy to like, do you go to the top of the track? Do you go down to the bottom of the track to hit the turns? Like, when do you want to pit? How long does it take to pit? Right? Like 9.7 seconds is a good
Sure.
pit. How is that play into softball? And so we've had so much fun with it. And so you know, when it comes to going back to like the American and we talk about it, and I'm like, hey, you guys, you are the team right now that, you know, your Denny Hamlins and NASCAR and your Bubba Wallace, like people know those names. So like you're not the person that nobody knows. So what are you going to do with that?
Wow, NASCAR. You got me on that one. I've never been to
Yeah.
NASCAR. I'm like
Oh
not
my
too
gosh,
far.
I encourage it.
Wow. Well, maybe
You
you
should
come
go
up
Daytona.
Daytona. Maybe go in the summer race. That might be what. That could be your bucket list.
There you
I feel
go.
like you got to do
Yep.
that. It's funny because Scarborough's a big Formula One fan, so she's all about the Formula.
Yeah. And I like Formula One. It's just a little bit more expensive. And so, you know, it just worked out with the team budget that we could afford the NASCAR
Props
tickets
to you
instead of
on
the
that.
Formula
I
One ticket.
props to
So,
you on that. Who won the race? Do you remember?
yes, Tyler Reddick.
Oh wow.
Tyler Reddick. And so it was fun because our girls, like, because we're watching this Netflix documentary,
Sure.
like they all kind of have like their favorites. And so it's cool because we actually knew some of the racers before we went to the race. So like we're all like yelling like at the very end, like who we wanted to win. And it was a cool moment.
Wow. Yeah, I learn something neat from you every year. That's wow. That's
Oh, thanks.
We mentioned a quick couple more things, and I'll let you go.
Yeah.
We talked about the pitching with it, Jayden coming back, Gabby coming back, Hensley. You added Autumn Courtney
Yeah.
from Queens. How is she adjusting to life in paradise there and her contributions, again, adding to that staff?
She is living her best life. I laugh because she's at the beach. She's, you know, going out and around town and, you know, she's just happy. And I think that that's the cool part is when you get these kids and you have this vision in the transfer process or the recruiting process is like seeing that vision come to life and how she fits in with the team and how she fits in with the staff. And, you know, the first time she threw a rise ball in the bullpen, I looked at Nicole and I said, "You're welcome." Because she's gonna help us and her ball dances and it's just pretty cool and I think that's something to be said going from Queens. She was very very successful. There is a little bit of that pressure, I'll be honest. You know, she was so successful that it's like, oh my gosh, like does she feel like she has to live up to that? You know, she was also the horse there where she pitched over 200 innings. Is she going to do that for us? I don't know. Is she going to just be disappointed if she doesn't? You know, those are conversations that we have to have that like, hey, you came here so we could give you help and you didn't have to do it all by yourself. Do you want to do it and can you do it by yourself? Absolutely. But our goal is that to help you to be fresh come May. And so yeah, she's going to be good for us and she's one of those that we're really happy that we won her in the transfer process. She was one of those that after we got her, I got so many text messages like, how did you get her? How did you get her? And so the inner competitive side of me was like, yeah, we won her.
No, that's a big coup there. And I almost feel, do you feel like your pitching staff maybe carries your team as you figure out the offense, especially in the outfield? Could that be in the early going, maybe the lean on that
Yeah.
pitching there early on until the offense kind of sorts itself out?
Yeah, so we've definitely talked about it. We've talked about that, like, hey, you know, as a pitching staff, we're not going to get frustrated if we're maybe not scoring runs or we're changing our lineup quite a bit. Like, you're going to be patient and you're going to know that like you're going to give us a chance to get comfortable. Like let us get comfortable because maybe in the fourth, fifth inning we busted open, or halfway during season we're getting a conference, like we're going to kind of find our stretch, or heck, we might hit it in the very beginning. We don't know. But I do know with the pitching staff, we've at least talked about like, I want you to embrace being the one in control. I want you to embrace that it's a 0-0 ball game, or embrace that, like we can have 6 different pitchers pitch at any time. So we've talked a lot about that and try to put them into some stressful situations this fall.
Conference tournament will be held in Tampa, Florida
Yes,
this
I'm
year.
happy.
I don't even have to ask. You're okay with that choice.
I am, because one, it's one less plane ride.
Yeah.
It's the weather that we're used to. It's stressful. So that's the one thing that like, when like last year we had a double bye. We did not play till Friday. We originally bought plane tickets for Monday because you have practice Tuesday, games are Wednesday. You're just sitting there all week. And I'm not saying that's why we lost. I'm not saying that. But there is a piece of like, you bought these plane tickets, you can't change them. Like we don't have the budget just to be like, nope, we're not going on that flight. We're not taking charter planes. Like that's just not us. So in Tampa, it's like, hey, if we do happen to get a double bye, we might not have to drive up on Monday or Tuesday, right? If we don't, like, it's just a little bit more flexible, and that's what I'm excited about.
Is that moving in the future? Could you envision hosting a conference tournament? I know you've been working on the facilities. You even
Yeah.
touched on that earlier. Is that a goal here down the road?
Okay. So I said last year to Christy at Wichita State, I was like, man, I don't ever want to host. I see everything that goes into this, and this is stressful. But the flip side is the amount of fans that they had against that game against us. It was an advantage. Like it was unreal. Like they packed that place out. And so, the more we start thinking about this, is it's like, okay, budget wise, you don't have to pay to travel. You have your fans, your girls can sleep in their own bed. So there are some perks to it. So I mentioned it to our sport AD, and I was like, his name's Russell. And I was like, Russell, hey, do we want to put in some bids for this? He looked at me, he was like, I thought we didn't want to host. And I was like, well, he's like, you're always changing your mind. And so I don't know, like I'm open to it. I really am. And the more people start loving softball in Boca, like I just think it might be really cool. And I think of teams coming and staying in Boca. I think they would be excited to have the conference tournament in Boca
Could be a
because
lot worse places to be. Could be a lot worse
yeah.
places
So
to be.
we'll see. I'm open. You know me. I bounce around ideas all the time.
I'm telling you, that's an easy sell. It's an
Yeah.
easy sell. But that's down the road. But Tampa's very good. They do a good job over there as well.
Yeah.
So I expect the first run or deal there. My last question: as you get
Yeah.
closer to the start of the season, what are a couple thoughts that you're curious to find out about your group that you won't find out until maybe literally opening weekend?
Yeah. I mean, number one is, how are we going to handle adversity? How are we going to handle when something doesn't go our way? Whether it's I'm not in the starting lineup, or I get pulled from my position, or, I had a bad weekend. Like, how do I handle adversity? That is the number one thing for me. The next one is, how does our lineup play out? Like, I really don't know. Like, if I asked our staff right now, hey, let's make a lineup, we all have something completely very different. And so to me, that tells me that there's a lot of competition ahead of us. So I would be so curious that who's starting for us. How are we going to handle that adversity? Like, what's our identity going to be? Like, there's just so many unknowns of what this looks like. So that's the biggest thing. The one thing that I will say that I'm really excited about is we're really competitive and we do not get scared. I have put them in some really tough situations. We train this. We, have worked on a lot of team bonding, team building, and, our girls are all in for the program. And that is the one thing that I am so proud of, is like, they are in it and they have such a good relationship and a good bond that it makes the coaching piece so much easier. Is they know the why and they're so proud of the program. And so those are kind of the big things that I'm excited to see how it all plays out. But definitely some question marks, which makes this exciting in a way that I think the girls feel it too, that there's not a set lineup. They know that, I'm getting text messages right now about what they're doing at home over break. And to me, that shows that they care, right? Like they're out hitting, they're out throwing. Like I had one of them pitching on a gravel road, and I'm like, I don't know if that's the smartest thing, but it matters to them. And I think that that's been the cool change from year one to now is that we don't have to talk about the expectations of winning because they already know. And so that's the cool part.
That is FAU head coach Jordan Clark, fresh off that American Conference championship. Her and Paul Maurice brought championships to the South Florida market. There, that's it. That's you like the connection. You like being compared to the Panthers. Come on.
I'll take it. I'll take it. Stanley Cup winners, I will take it.
Very good. Thank you. Hey, thanks for tolerating me and talking. We always enjoy talking to you and breaking bread and just talking softball and life in general. But thanks for everything for coming on. Congrats again on last year. Great year, well deserved. Good luck this year as you get defense the title, and I'm sure we'll cross paths during the season. But thanks for taking the time to talk to us here on In the Circle.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure. Always feel honored to be asked. So stay tuned. Go Owls as always.